2 years after a painful divorce, Emma thought she was invisible, forgotten. Then one unexpected message appears. I'm getting married. You're invited. From a man who left her heartbroken. Will she stay away and hide, or step into a room full of memories, courage, and a chance to reclaim herself? Grace Miller never planned for life to fall apart the way it did. But it happened anyway, quietly, painfully, and all at once. For years, she tried to hold her marriage together. She tried to fix things Daniel never even considered broken. He had grown cold, distant, tired of the small life they had built, tired of the quiet evenings, tired of responsibilities he never learned to appreciate. And one ordinary evening, as she stood in their living room, he said the words she already knew were coming. Grace, I want a divorce. Just like that. No fight, no explanation. Just a door closing on 10 years. Grace didn't scream. She didn't beg. She simply stood there, holding back tears that burned her throat, because she had learned long ago, tears never change anything. She signed the papers, packed her things, and walked away, alone. The world outside didn't pause for her pain. Cars still rushed by. People still laughed on sidewalks. Strangers still lived their happy lives. But for Grace, everything felt blurry, distant, hollow. The only person who opened her door when she had nowhere else to go was Margaret Reed, her closest friend, her safe place. One look at Grace's face, and Margaret wrapped her arms around her, whispering, You don't have to be strong today. For the first time in weeks, Grace allowed herself to cry. Days passed in slow silence until one morning, life delivered a shock she never saw coming. As she stood in the bathroom, staring at the test in her shaking hands, her heart froze. Pregnant, she whispered to herself. How am I supposed to do this alone? But life has a strange way of giving strength, exactly where it hurts most. Grace decided she would raise her child, even if she had to build a new world from nothing. But fate had even bigger plans. Months later, the doctor smiled gently and said, Grace, it's not one. You're having 3. Triplets. Grace laughed from disbelief and cried from fear at the same time. She walked out of the hospital with trembling hands, unsure of the road ahead, but certain she wasn't going to break. And when the day finally came, when she held her 3 newborns, tiny, warm, fragile, pressed to her chest, everything inside her changed. They were her reason, her strength, her entire future wrapped in tiny blankets. She named them Aiden, Eli, and Sophie. The nights were long. The days were exhausting. She barely slept. She worked from home, taking sewing jobs while rocking a baby in her lap and feeding another with one hand. But somehow she managed. Somehow she created a life full of love, even with very little money. Margaret helped whenever she could. Homework, meals, chaos management. Grace often whispered to her, I don't know what I'd do without you. 7 years passed. The kids grew into bright, sweet, happy little souls who filled the house with noise, mess, questions, and laughter. Grace had built a life with them, a life Daniel never knew existed. She never told him, not because she hated him, but because he had already walked away long before she knew she was carrying his children. And then everything shifted again. One quiet evening, Grace opened her mailbox. Inside was a white envelope, heavy, elegant, expensive. A wedding invitation. Daniel Carter marrying someone else. She felt nothing at first. No tears. No anger. Just a cold silence inside her chest. She sat at the kitchen table, staring at the card while her children ran around the house, laughing. They were her family now. She didn't owe Daniel anything, but the universe had other plans. The next day, Margaret placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Grace, maybe you should go. Grace frowned. Why? He doesn't even know I exist anymore. Margaret sighed. He should know you survived. He should know what you became. Grace didn't decide immediately. She spent the whole night thinking. And by morning, she knew what she wanted. She would go, not for him, but for herself and for her children. On the wedding day, a luxury car pulled up to the venue. Guests turned their heads as Grace stepped out, calm, confident, elegant. Not the broken woman Daniel once left behind, but the woman she rebuilt herself into. Then the whispers grew louder, because behind her, 3 children climbed out. Aiden, Eli, Sophie. The air changed instantly. Guests stared. Murmurs spread like ripples. Inside the hall, Daniel froze mid-conversation the moment he saw her. His face drained to color. Grace. She simply nodded. Then his eyes shifted, slowly, carefully, toward the children standing close behind her. His lips parted. His breath caught. His world collapsed silently. Are they? Grace didn't answer. She didn't need to. The truth lived in their eyes, in their features, in every piece of them that resembled him. Vanessa, the bride, stiffened. She felt the shift, the attention slipping away from her, the ground trembling beneath her perfect day. Her smile faded into a thin, jealous line. She whispered sharply to Daniel, "What is happening?" But Daniel couldn't move. He couldn't speak. He couldn't look away from the children he never knew he had. Later, in a quiet corner of the hall, he stood face to face with them. His voice cracked when he whispered, I didn't know." Grace answered softly, "You didn't want to know anything about me. You made that choice." Aiden stepped slightly behind his mother. Sophie clung to Grace's hand. Eli looked confused and shy. Grace gently placed her hands on their shoulders, as if shielding them from the storm. Daniel felt something break inside him. Regret, guilt, shock, all at once. But Vanessa was already angry, tugging at his arm, demanding explanations, whispering the kind of things meant to wound. Grace took a breath and said quietly, "This isn't the place for this conversation." And then she did the most powerful thing a woman can do. She walked away, not in anger, not in pain, just calm, confident, unbothered. Her children followed, their small hands in hers, their trust wrapped around her like armor. Outside, under the warm lights, the car waited. Grace helped the kids into back seats. Sophie leaned against her shoulder. Aiden yawned. Eli was already half asleep. Grace sat behind the wheel, started the engine, and glanced at them in the mirror. 3 tiny faces she had raised alone. 3 lives she had built from courage. 3 reasons she never looked back. She smiled softly and whispered, "We're going home." As the car moved away from the venue, Grace felt something lift from her heart. She had been enough all along. She had survived every storm. She had raised 3 beautiful souls on her own. And she didn't need anyone, especially not the man who once walked away, to validate her journey. Because Grace wasn't just a single mother. She wasn't just a woman with a painful past. She was a warrior, a mother, and a story of strength the world needed to see. Sometimes life doesn't break you. It simply shows you who truly belongs in your story. And Grace Miller finally understood the only people who belonged in hers were sitting right in the back seat, safe, loved, and hers forever.